Hey, what's going on everyone? This is JohnFest back with another video. Today we'll be doing a monthly tier list for December for patch 0.2 of early access of Predecessor. So it kind of seems like every month when they do a new hero, this month it was Countless, next month it'll be Revenant, and the next month after that Shinbi, and then Huntress. It kind of seems like with how they released Countless this month, they did a large round of buffs and nerfs to different heroes. So I thought that I think doing a monthly tier list series would be kind of cool to kind of give you updated what's going on in the meta and what I'm kind of noticing are good picks and what seem to be not so great picks. So just kind of as a disclaimer, this is all just my opinion at the end of the day. I have some bias in some of my choices. I do realize that I try to be as unbiased as I can, but there's only so much I can do to eliminate all that bias, and it would definitely really help once we the API officially get released to the public, and so we have this raw data we can look at for win rates and lose rates of different heroes that will really give us a lot better picture of what's actually going on in these games. So another important thing to note is that this is going to be more of a middle ground kind of tier list, so not low MMR or high MMR. This is going to be kind of right in the middle where most people are at MMR wise, so kind of like just an overall general kind of like mid tier list, if you can think of it that way. And one last thing to note is that I have a little different format for how I'm doing this tier list. This is just because we have such a small hero pool that I feel like it's hard to really be precise in doing the 5 different roles for like ranking these heroes. I feel like doing just 4 roles seem to be better, like suited for more general tier lists, because especially since we don't have an API again, so it's hard to be very precise with our ranking. So I feel like doing 4 roles and kind of going a more general way about it is a good way to do it more like closer to accurate tier list, or try my best to make it as accurate as I can. And so tier 1 heroes are the ones that I consider to be always good picks. They don't really have any hard matchups. They may have 1 or 2, but they can still work their way around it and still perform pretty well. These are heroes that may need some fine tuning, but or they just seem to be really good just overall, just because of how the kit and role is. Tier 2 are kind of like the balanced heroes. These are the ones that are good heroes. They are typically ones that sometimes get overshadowed by the tier 1 heroes, and they may typically have more harder counter matchups, I would say. Tier 3 is we're going to get to the situational picks. These are heroes that can still perform well. It's just they're not always good picks to go every game, I would say. They especially get overshadowed by the tier 1, tier 2 picks, because it just doesn't feel as generalistic, and they can be in every team comp. They are better suited for when the situation needs it. And T4 are kind of like the heroes I consider that they really need some love. I think they kind of struggle a bit, and they are heroes I consider to be that you need to put in a lot more effort to actually make it work, whereas you can just play any heroes above and get the same result for the most part. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the first hero we're going to be talking about, and now is going to be Countless, the newest hero released in Predecessor. She is a hero that's best played in the offlane and mid lane, and so for her, I'm actually going to be putting her in tier 2. I think this is a hero that's going to have a lot of mixed opinions depending on who you are. Some people could put her tier 1 because she is really insanely good once you get fed with her and can get to the mid to late game. Some people may also just actually put her in tier 3 because of how easy she is to bully and shut down early on. But I think she is a balanced hero. That is kind of like my opinion based on the games I play with her and against her. She's a hero that her early game is not that bad, and that's the only weak part. The most glaring weak part of her is trying to survive the early game, but I think she has the tools to actually survive the early game well, because she has a lot of lifesteal in her kit, and she does have a Q ability that makes her quite slippery, so she's not that bad early game. It's just a matter of you prioritizing surviving CSing well, and once you start to get your item spikes, your first 2 items for example, that's when you can start to do really good damage, able to 100 people and just become a threat. Because the thing with Counts, especially if you play her mid lane, is that she's probably one of the best roam mode roamers, I would say, like best able to gank the side lanes because how easy it is to execute her full kit. All you need to do is Q on someone, you R&B immediately, you E, and then you R. It's just so easy to land your whole kit on someone. Whereas at mid laners, they have a lot more skill shots. You can miss that can be detrimental to making ganks successful. Countess is just so hard to miss her abilities once you top on someone, so her roams are very consistent, and I think it's because of that and how well she just scales overall. I think she's a solid balanced hero in my opinion. Next, we're gonna talk about Quant. He's a best player in the offlane and jungle, and he's the one the heroes that got actually really hit across the head. He got nerfed pretty hard, I would say. His whole base damage across the board got nerfed. His Q, his R&B, his E, his R, everything got nerfed. And his items also got nerfed, like Life Binder and Mutilator. So despite all those nerfs, Quant is someone that I think is actually still doing really well, because before this patch, Quant will probably be like a tier 1. The nerfs bring him down to tier 2. Like, he's still really strong from what I can tell. He definitely struggles more in his counter matchups like the Steel and Glux, but like he is still a very effective dueler despite all these nerfs. And so this is, even though he got hit hard, he is still a formidable threat, just not as oppressive as he used to be. Next up is Deca. She is a support character, and we are actually going to be putting her in tier 1. So this is something that may be a little hard take. I think, for example, someone would consider Richard to be one of the best supports in the game. I actually think that Deca is actually one of the best supports instead, because she is very consistent. As a support character especially, you want to play a pick that is very consistent in providing value to your teammates. So the thing with Deca is that she has a lot of stunning tools. She has her K, she has her R&B stun, she has her ultimate. She is very, and she's also very elusive too with her boots and just her whole kit in general. So she is someone that may be a little hard to pick up initially, but I feel like she overall provides much more consistent value, because with someone like Victor, as soon as you miss your hook, that's all your value is gone. Whereas Deca, even if you miss your R&B, you still have those range abilities you can still throw out, and the quest items you go on her, like the one silence one you can go on her, makes her very good at shutting down people. She's probably one of the best supports at shutting down enemies that try to dive your ADC, which try and protect your ADCs and key targets, or just locking down people in general. It's very potent for support. So I think Deca is probably, I would consider, one of the best supports right now, but that's just my opinion. Next up is Drongo. He is an ADC or carry, as you would call it, and we're actually going to be putting him in tier 2. And so Drongo just kind of feels balanced overall. He doesn't feel like a tier 1 pick, but he doesn't feel like a tier 3 pick. He just seems a good overall ADC. He has a lot of good utility. His silence grenade is very potent. It actually can completely shut down certain characters. Like if a crunch jumps on top of you, you just Q at your feet, you fight in that Q. That crunch can't use any of his abilities, so he can't do anything, and you're able to take these close encounter duels with it that you normally will not be able to do with ADCs, because the ADC is like, you want people to stay off you. Drongo still kind of wants people to stay off him, but if it's a melee character like a Collide or Quant that try gets on top of him, he can place his Q, he can fight in that Q, not worrying about those abilities that can kill him, and then he can always use his ultimate to get back out, create some more space, and all do. He's very just good at being able to deal with 1v1 situations. But I think he is overshadowed by a certain ADC I will get to eventually, which is why I kind of put him in the tier 2 for now. And next on the list is Fei Mao. He is someone that I really enjoyed back in the April stress test. However, it seems like in this early access he was significantly changed, and not in a good way. He seemed to be really hit really hard. So he is a tier 4 character. He's someone that needs some love, because his late game is still insanely good. He can still one-shot people like the Collide and countless late game. The problem is his early game. His early game is atrocious. Like, it's so hard to win early game with him. Like in the offlane especially, I feel like with Fame Out, playing with him, playing against him, he's like one of the easiest people to deal in the offlane because he has mana issues. All his ability costs so much mana, so he becomes very oomph, but also he doesn't have the greatest early game damage. He doesn't have a lot of durability at all. If you try to use your Q, you can try to survive a little bit better, but that costs so much mana, so it's end up not being worth using your Q a whole lot of times. It's just so hard to play him, whereas Quench feels like so easy to like keep using abilities and not want to mana issues. Fame Out is very hard to survive early game. He's a lot better in the jungle, but I feel like he's overshadowed by Kalari. I feel like almost every other jungler is better than Fame Out, unfortunately. So it's just that I feel like his early game damage, not so much his early game damage need to get buffed, it's just he has no sustain in terms of mana, and it's just so hard to stay healthy. So because of that, I just put him tier 4. I'm hoping that eventually they go back to him. They realign his kit so he has a better early game, maybe worse late game, but he definitely needs some early game power to be able to do anything. And next on the list is gonna be the Faye. She's someone that I think is actually so underrated. She's a very potent mid laner, so we're gonna put her in tier 2. And the main reason why I wouldn't put her in tier 1 is because she is a bit harder to play in terms of positioning. She is someone that can be really easy to blow up. Once you get on top of her, she has no really hard escape. I would say her only way to escape is if you also one and just hope you run away fast enough. But despite this kind of big weakness and having no mobility and be easy to be ganked in the mid lane, I feel like the Faye is still very potent mid laner. Her ultimate is probably one of the strongest ultimates in the game. That's kind of what makes her a very good pick, and I just feel like she definitely deserves a spot in the tier 2 spot. Next up is going to be another mid laner by the name of Gadget. I think Gadget might be the most underrated. I think Faye is underrated, but I feel like Gadget is the most underrated mid laner or character overall. Just people don't seem to like her that much at all or not talk about her, but I really think that she's a very solid mid laner. I would actually put her in tier 2. And the reason why I think she is very good is because she's one of the few mid laners that can survive a while when if someone's on top of them. Someone like Faye, if you have a Chimera jump on you as the Faye, you can't get away, you can't really fight back as well. Like you just hope to use your ult and hope they kill him. Whereas Gadget, because of her kit, how it works, she has so many slows, so many moves, she has so many good tools to allow her to survive when someone drops on top of her. And so the interesting thing about Gadget is she is very good at spamming abilities long range, so she has a ton of zoning potential. But even if the enemies get on top of her, you just place ult on yourself, so someone like Grux jumps on top of you, you just throw your entire kit at your feet, and you just watch the Grux health bar just go bye-bye, right? So she is just someone that is a lot more durable than you would expect at the mid lane. She's very good at kiting people, she's very good at poking, she's very good around the objectives, being able to punish people, pushing in hard, and just doing a lot of damage overall. So I just think that she is just overall really solid. Next up on the list is another mid laner, and it's Gideon, and I actually think he's gonna be our first tier 3 pick. And the reason why I think the tier 3 is because he's not as a consistent mage as I like. One thing I really value in these tier lists is consistency, and Gideon compared to someone like the Faye and Gadget is not consistent, and that he kind of sort of feels like more high risk high reward, or rather he has so many skill shots. Like his main basic abilities are abilities that can sometimes be hard to hit, whereas like Gadget and Faye, you can kind of throw them out generally where they're gonna be at, or you can do a full combo, pull them all together and be able to get all that damage, right? Gideon is someone you can easily miss with your Q and RB if you're not used to his kit, but that's not the only reason. The another reason is because unlike the other mid laners who can use their ultimates and be safe or create space, Gideon is someone that has to go in himself and ult with his black hole, and that makes him very, very vulnerable to be CC or whatnot. And so I kind of just put him tier 3 because all the other like ultimates of other mid lanes, they can just kind of do it safely for the most part. Gideon is the one that's the most riskiest, and it's because of the more risky ult to get counter and his kit having a lot more skill expression and being harder to hit your abilities. It makes me want to put him in tier 3. Next up on the list is Grux. He's actually one of my favorite offlaners. He's also very good in the jungle. So I'm trying not to be I'm not trying to be biased with this pick, but I seriously think he's a tier 1 pick. He is an absolute menace in the offlane jungle. He's just someone that is one of the few champions that can consistently win 1v1s. He's one of the best duelists because of how his ultimate works. He steals physical power, he stacks so much bleed, he got so much army fam, so he's doing so much damage, but he's also deceptively tanky with the army fam. And so he just seems like he's kind of like a he's just across the board, early game, mid game, late game, he's always seemed strong. He never falls off, he never feels weak early. He's always consistently good. Even if he falls behind, if he falls back up, he can become a huge threat in team fights, or even just a split pusher. Someone has to deal with the Grux, and usually in the 1v1 the Grux can win outright. You usually have to send in at least 2 people to shut him down, and it's because of that so much threat and having so much presence on the map. It's kind of why I put him in tier 1. He just always seems a good pick, and a scary pick at that. Next on the list is the mid laner Howitzer, and he's actually going to be going on the tier 1. So the reason why I value Howitzer more than the Gadget and Faye is because he seems to be he seems to be a very safe mid lane. Is one reason. Like Faye is kind of riskier putting her in the mid lane because of how easy to gank. Gadget doesn't have to worry about that as much, but what kind of puts Howitzer above the Gadget is being to have very solid ganks. Like Gadget can roam, she can gank well, but her base damage, her how you roam with her, is not as high damage, or rather it requires she doesn't have as much burst damage. It's easy to kind of like walk out of it, whereas Howitzer with his E-mine knockback, pushing people towards your teammates to finish them off, having a really good finisher ultimate, an ultimate that you can save in the mid lane, and if a jungler shot against you, just press R, and you can even use that to kill the mid laner and then just walk away back to your turn. He is someone that is just very good all around. He was recently nerfed, but I still think he's a very, very good mid laner, and so that's kind of why I put him tier 1. He's just a very good performer. I feel like you can never go wrong with the Howitzer, so he can really just perform well in my opinion. So Chloe is next on the list. This is someone that I've thought about more compared to her heroes, because I initially thought she was a tier 2 initially, because she is actually a more skill expression hero. She is someone that can be easily punished, she can get CC and all that, but I think for the most part, most people won't exactly know how to exactly shut her down. So I think Kalai is just a really solid tier 1 pick. She is an offlane, she's a jungle. I think she's a top contender for the jungle role. I think she is seriously just like, she's hard to play, but the fact that her ganks are really potent early on, being able to go in and be invisible and one up to AC before they even know you're there. You can of course place wards down, but I have games where even though they ward really well, they play really well and sorting me out when I try to gank them. As soon as you get close to them, that is just GG. You are going to be killing the very vital target on the enemy team, and you can win those team fights in that way. So definitely I think she's just someone that's not that bad early and insanely good mid to late game. So I think she's a really solid tier 1 pick in my opinion. Next up on the list is Chimera. So Chimera to me is going to be a more situational pick. He's not bad. He's actually can be good. He's actually a jungler that actually counters Collide pretty hard, because he has a cleanse in his E where he can cleanse the death mark. So that's a lot of damage he's gained from the Kalari. But also, like, he's just able to really bully the Kalari early on. He's able to invade a lot, just be a huge menace, and Kalari just can't do anything to this Chimera. But then you have the matchup where he's going against a Grux jungler and he can never win that 1v1 because of Grux's kit. And he even can sometimes struggle against a Quench, right? So Chimera is just one of those picks that is good, but he's not always a good pick every game. It's definitely more situational. If it's a Grux jungle or Grux in the game, you may not want to pick Chimera because of how hard it's going to be to fight the Grux. Or whereas if you see a Kalari on the enemy team, then the Chimera could be a really good pick. That's kind of how I see him, and that's why he is a more situational pick in my eyes. Next up on the list is Lieutenant Belka. She is a mid laner, but she can also play support. So she's gonna be another situational pick for the most part. I think Belka, she doesn't have as much consistent value as I would like, because her main thing is to be able to do your whole damage with your basic abilities. You have to land 2 abilities, her knock up Q and your RB you place right after. And that's not the easiest thing to do. Because first you have to do your knockup, so you have to see where the enemy is going and then use it. And then you have to be fast enough to place the bomb right under them to be able to do your whole combo, right? So she's someone that can do a lot of burst damage, but it requires 2 abilities to land well. Whereas like a Harvester, you throw a Q at someone, Gachi, just throw all your abilities at someone and you do good value. Faye, you ult someone and you just group everyone, just kill everyone. Lieutenant Belka doesn't want to do that. Like, she's someone I think is definitely good in team fights. She's really good playing with her teammates, locking up the key targets, being disruption in the team fights. But I think if it's just the air miners in terms of just damage alone are a lot more consistent, and they tend to be a little bit safer because Belka is a pretty immobile mid laner, so she's kind of easy to get on top of and stay on top of her as her Q's not up, or even if she use her Q, it's easy to just keep following her. So that's kind of why I'm putting her in tier 3. She's actually a good counter to certain heroes like a Countess, but just she's not a good pick every game, I would say. Next up on the list is Modok. He is another ADC / carry. He's actually going to be going into tier 1. He, in my opinion, is actually one of the best carries in the game, and it's just because of how good he is, and just in general, because he has so much good self-support and survivability with on B and his E, and his ultimate makes him a ADC where he has global threat, where as long as his ultimate is up, you cannot back safely because the Modok can just snipe you, and getting those kills across the map can really help him snowball hard and just be able to really start to spike pretty hard in terms of hitting your power spikes and all that. And again, like so like Drongo is also someone that has good self-peel, but I feel like with Modok, in terms of just wall damage output, wall pushing people back and just fighting people, Modok just seems to do a lot better in those nitty-gritty fights. So he's just someone I think definitely is just really strong in my opinion. Next up is Mirio. She is a support character. She's actually going to be a tier 4. I think she needs some love because she was recently buffed to where she has some base shield increase across the board. The main problem though with her is that she has no CC, and usually that's not a big deal. Like, I think in MMOs like League of Legends, having a CC is not always a requirement as long as you have the right kit that makes up for it. Mirio kit doesn't quite make up for the lack of CC besides her ultimate. Because this game is very kind of snowbally, or rather I have a lot of games that are usually decided by 20-25 minutes, or games just people FF at 20-25 minutes, right? And so Mirio is someone I see as a mid to late game scaling support. Her shields become very potent once you get all your items, once you scale up. The problem is the games don't last that long enough for her shields to kind of scale up to that from my experience. And just the lack of CC really makes the early game in the dual lane, kind of really unsafe for the ADC, because yes, you can shield him a bunch so you can negate some of the damage if they jump on top of him, but you have no way to turn around the fight. As soon as one of you guys gets CC, it's just a favorable trade for the enemy. It's really hard to get a favorable turnaround. Like if a non-bash thunk your ADC, but then you wait to pull their ADC, you can turn around that fight and it can be favorable. Mario cannot do that at all early on, so that's kind of why I don't think she needs a CC ability. I think she just needs a little more bumped into her early game shields, so that she can use those shields for the ADC to play a bit more aggressively and survive a bit better in those early stages. Next up is another support, not bash. I think he's actually gonna be a T2 balanced hero, and the reason why, again, is because I value consistent heroes a whole lot, and Notbash is a very consistent hero. He's very good early game. He can keep his ADC alive. He has a thunk that's very good at disengaging or engaging onto a really good trade. His ultimate is really solid in team fights, like when the team fight starts and then he goes in the ult end, it can create some havoc and create some peel and space for your ADC. And plus, he's just really easy to play, so it's very easy to get consistent value out of it, and it's very easy to keep your AC alive early game with him. So that's kind of why I think he's a solid balanced hero. Next up is Rampage. He is a jungler, and I think he's actually another contender for one of the best junglers in the game, along with Polari. And so the reason why I consider Rampage to be a very solid T1 pick is because his early game and mid game are very good. When you play in jungle hero, the 2 important things you need to have: you need to be able to gank well early, help your lane snowball, help you stop the snowball, but also need to make sure you have very good early clears in the jungle, so that way you can spend more time actually invading or ganking the lanes rather than trying to finish out your jungle camp. And Rampage is someone that actually is one of the fastest clearers in the jungle in the early to mid game, and that's because of his passive. He gained attack speed boost while in the jungle. He has the E that's very solid and doing AoE damage and doing those damage to those jungle camps. But also the items you build on him are all very good at clearing jungle camps. I like to build Barbaric Cleaver and then build straight into Brimstone, and those are two items that work really well for Rampage's core build, but they're also very good at clearing jungle camps. So I'm able to, with those two items, I'm able to clear really fast, so I can spend more time invading, I can spend more time ganking. He's just a very efficient jungler, and additionally, he is very good at tower diving with his ultimate. A lot of times it can be hard to gank as a jungler if they're like sitting at the turret, for example. It's hard to make a gank happen, right? Well, with Rampage, he doesn't really care as much if the turret is there. If they're kind of low and they're sitting in the turret, if you have ultimate, you can just kind of use your ultimate, leap in to the fog wall, you can kill the ADC and be able to finish him off and take the turret enough hits for your team to be able to finish him off. So he is just a very solid jungler overall. He's hard to kill. That's also another plus, because junglers are usually key targets to lock down and shut down, but he's also a tank, so he is someone that it's gonna be quite hard to kill, so he's just really solid overall. Next up is Victor on the list. I'm actually going to be putting him as a tier 2 character. Some people consider him a T1 pick, but as I explained earlier, I think Decker provides a lot more consistent value and lockdown overall. Victor does a lot of similar things as Decker. The main difference is that he's really relying on his hook. I kind of assume people would land his hooks most of the time, right? But it's just weird, because as soon as your hook is down, the enemy are not scared of you anymore. They're not afraid of getting hooked by you. You just lose all that pressure. Whereas someone like Decker can always have that pressure because she has so many kits to stun or stun people. So it's kind of like one reason why I don't see him as a T1 pick. Another reason is that I think Victor is actually not a great support if your team is falling behind. He's very good at enabling your team when they're snowballing and you guys can win really hard. problem is when your team is behind, he doesn't shine as much. So even if you land on your hooks, even if your team's at a disadvantage in 5v5, even if you hook someone, it could still be a really messy team fight, and where your team can end up still losing from what I can gather from him. He's also a really solid offlaner. He's not just a support, he's a really solid offlaner, but he's sorta I think somehow he would like to steal is a bit better than Victor offlane, but Victor is still a really solid offlaner. So it's just, I think he's just a really solid balanced hero, from just in my opinion. Next up on the list is Sedwalk. He's an offlaner. I know some people like playing him jungle, but I don't quite like him jungle. His clears are a little bit too slow early on, so I'm thinking of him more as a offlaner. And he's actually gonna be tier 3. And this kind of makes me sad because I think Sedwalk is actually an insanely good offlaner. If you're talking about the most competitive environments like the 5v5 esports leagues or whatever, he is definitely tier 1, no, hands down. Like, he's one of the best scaling offlaners in the game. He's so good, and those team fights, he's great at 1v1s. He's so beefy, just does so much considerable damage, right? But in this early access period, in the solo queue, outside of rank, where games typically don't go super long, most of my games are 25 minutes or less. I rarely get games that actually go longer than 30 minutes, and that's where Sedwalk started to really shine this past 30 minutes. Well, he's gained his 4 stacks, he's gained all his items, he's a very formidable threat. Unfortunately, in this current meta where the games are not going that long, it kind of hurts him a lot, so that's kind of one reason why I put him tier 3. Another reason I put him tier 3 is because he's a bit harder offlaner to play, because now you have, in general, you need to CS well, but Sedwalk has an additional requirement where you have to last hit minions with your abilities to build the stacks you need to perform as the late game Sedwalk. And it's so like, someone like Steel, he doesn't need CS, he can be very good in team fights. Sedwalk is someone that has to play selfish, he can't really do too much roaming early on. He needs to play selfish, farm up his stacks before he can do anything, and sometimes that can lead to the enemy team snowballing, and by the time Sedwalk is strong enough to be able to be a formidable threat, it may be too late. So that's kind of why I'm putting him tier 3 in this kind of solo queue mindset. Next up on the list is Beryl. She is going to be another situation pick at tier 3. And she's also another hero like Sedwalk that I think is actually insanely good. If you're talking about the most competitive 5v5 esports tourneys, I think she's someone that could be a tier 1. She's like, has the most raw damage output compared to all these ADCs. The problem is she has no mobility, no survivability. She's very easy to jump on, bust her down before she can do anything. And so when you're solo queuing, especially in these kind of like random queue environments, you're not always going to have a support or just a team that can keep you safe. And so because of that, it can be pretty frustrating to play Sparrow solo queue. It's just hard to do what you do best if your team cannot keep you alive, or while the enemy team can just focus you down really hard and you can't really do much about it, whereas other ADCs have ways to disengage from that. So she's kind of someone with more high risk, high reward kind of pick. In the esports environment, she's probably way better pick, tier 1 or tier 2 kind of pick, but I think in the solo queue environment, it's just too risky to play her. So she's more situational. If you see an enemy team that doesn't have too much scary people that can jump on top of you, Spell is definitely better, but for the most part, she's kind of a situational pick. Last one on the tier list is going to be Steel, and he's going to be actually a tier 1 pick, believe it or not. And so I haven't seen much people talk about Steel as much. I think he's seriously like a really insanely good offlaner. He's someone that functions really similar to Sedwalk, and that they're both really great at team fights. The biggest difference is that Steel is much easier and straightforward to play. He has a bit more impactful ultimate. His ultimate is probably one of the most potent team fight ultimates in the game, I would say. And he just has so much CC in his kit. And he's just very good at shutting down some of the more oppressive offlaners too. Because like, for example, against the Grugs or the Crunch, all you need to do really is focus on farming. If they try to fight you, you beat them away, you stun them, gain a shield, and just back off. And you can use that offensively too. You can whittle them down. You can solo kill these more oppressive offlaners. He's just very good at shutting down people and just being very strong in this team fight. So if you're looking for a tank to play that's very consistent and easy to play and very potent in those team fights, Dio is like one of the best in my opinion. But that about wraps up this tier list. So this video is a bit on the longer side, so I apologize for that. So definitely let me know down in the comments what you think of this kind of tier list discussion. Try to be a little bit more concise, or do you guys actually like these longer discussions where I try to talk individually about each hero? Also definitely let me know you guys' thoughts on how I rate the characters, what you agree with, what you disagree with, because there's definitely no true right answer. This is just kind of my opinion at the end of the day, and it's definitely skewed too because the lack of the API website for me to double check my opinions with the raw data. We just don't have that yet, but as soon as that is released, we can make definitely a lot better tier list. So thank you guys so much for seeing through this kind of long tier list video. I'll try to again be a little bit more concise next time, but let me know if you actually like this or you actually want me to try to cut it down a little bit. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.